Hello and welcome to the AV4's podcast, streaming live on Sunday the 30th of August, and hopefully on this occasion it has gone out because we've tried a couple of times already. And just quickly looking at my screen, it looks like we are live. Joining me on this edition, Steve Withers.
And for the third time, silk still comes from the butts of Chinese worms.
Ed Selley.
How's it hanging, Death?
Tom Davies.
I've got a robot chubby.
And Kaz Harlow.
Quite aptly, best 3 of 5.
No, we don't need to do any more.
Right, it looks like we're live. So if you are watching us live on the stream, good evening, welcome along. We are back. We've been away on our holiday as well. We haven't. The podcast has been off for 2 weeks. I certainly haven't been on holiday. Steve, have you been on holiday?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been watching films in the home cinema. So
Busman's holiday. Okay.
I think that's a staycation, is it?
Okay.
Not?
Ed, you been away?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I went
Tom?
to the pub.
Yeah, I went to the beach.
All right. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
it was amazing.
Yeah. Excellent. And Kaz? No, yeah. I know. Oh yeah, you have.
I
Haven't you?
did. I went to the Jurassic Coast, and
Is it because of you that bit of-
fossils.
Yeah,
Fifth
are
fell
you
off.
responsible for the bit that fell off?
Possibly. I have been meaning to lose weight, but yes. I went to Jurassic Coast and we picked up some fossils. I should have actually brought some and stuck them in front of the camera, but
Yeah.
some ammonites
show and
and
tell.
stuff like that. Yeah, I'll grab some. And,
Right, so obviously we've been away on holiday. Kaz's been away on holiday. We'll catch up with that in a little bit. But first of all, I need to go through what you can do while you're watching or listening. If you're listening to the audio-only version, and of course you can get that from your usual podcast providers in audio-only form, iTunes, Spotify, etc. You can find us on most of the major ones. If you are listening later in the week, then thank you very much for listening. And if you want to ask questions, you can do that through podcast@avforums.com if that's what you want to do. We are streaming now on Zoom because we had issues with Skype and sync and so on, which means that we've had to rejig things a little bit this evening. If I'm not looking at a camera, sorry, because my screen's all over the place at the minute. Because in Skype, you could do it a certain way. With the Zoom, it tends to take over the whole thing, and then I can't see my running order and so on. So if I'm not looking at a camera, sorry about that. If I'm looking down here, it's because I need to look down there. We'll try and iron things out as we go on. Let us know in the comments what it's like, audio, video-wise, and so on. Is the quality good? The layout, we can't do much about the layout, but hopefully you can see us and hear us if you are watching live. Obviously, it's the end of the month, so we'll be covering our favourite TV, music, movies. Ed will be doing his playlists and albums and that thing called vinyl and so on, so we'll be coming back to that a little bit later on. We're also going back to our old structure of the podcast. We had quite a bit of feedback saying that people were struggling to find what they were looking for because they got so used to the old format. We're going to go back to that. So the hardware and software will be split into 2 separate sections. So we're going to be doing that tonight. Also, if you want to ask a question, you can do that via the donation system, which is streamlabs.com/AVforums. It's the perfect way to get a question asked. You can do that and donate any amount that you like. If you want to become a patron and join us every month for £3 a month, then you can do that at patreon.com/AVforums. And if you do any of those things, then thank you very much for supporting us. Your help helps us to grow AV Forums. It improves the site speed, features, editorial, all that kind of jazz. We can do some decent podcasts at some point. We keep promising that every week. One week we'll nail it. Can't say when, but we'll do it at some point. And donations since we last went live. Neil Davidson, I am assuming this is Neil Davidson, who used to be on the podcast and is still in the industry and doing some great things with screens and other things. So Neil, welcome along as a patron. Thank you very much. Right, so that's us caught up with all of that, so we can find out what people have been doing this week. And sadly, I think Steve's been looking and searching out actors on Google again. Have you, Steve?
I have not. I take no responsibility for the sad passing of Chadwick Boseman, which was really sad. I mean,
Yeah, it was a shock.
Is too young. And the fact that, he had cancer since 2016, which means that, he had it when Black Panther came out. I saw a video on Twitter during the promotional tour for Black Panther, where he was talking about 2 kids with terminal cancer who were holding on to see the film, and he broke down in tears during this sort of telling the story. And you think at the time that he's just emotional because it's quite a sad story, but now of course you understand there was a lot more to it than just that. I did think he looked quite thin and gaunt when I was watching To Five Bloods, but I assume that was just for the role.
Yeah.
So yeah, very sad, very sad. 43 is too young for anyone to go, but he left behind a solid body of work and did some really great movies in such a short period of time. And not just, obviously he'll be best known for playing Black Panther, but he was also James Brown and Jackie Robinson in 42, and James Brown in Get On Up. And I think he also played someone I'm not familiar with. It's the film Marshall, but it's an American civil rights leader who I must admit I don't know personally. I'd never actually heard of, but he did a solid body of work. He didn't just, he did the Marvel movies, but he also did a lot of serious films. He was a good actor, and it's very sad, very sad.
I mean, Black Panther was a huge movie, and I don't think a lot of people saw that coming at the time. I think it outperformed expectations, didn't it? Really, Steve? It really
made over $1 billion.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of that money came. It's in the States. It's I think it's the third most successful film of all time. And obviously in America particularly, but globally as well, the idea of a black superhero, an African superhero as well for that matter, with an almost entirely black cast, aside from Martin Freeman and it was
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis, yeah. Yeah, I mean, culturally, that was a big deal. And clearly it resonated with audiences in the States, particularly black audiences in the States. I mean, it was great for them to see. I mean, he had been introduced in Civil War the year before, but, headlining his own film. I guess it's not true to say he's the first black superhero to get a movie, because obviously Blade, I would say, was well before that. But I think culturally, it definitely hit a note when it came out in 2016. And probably more so now. And it was a huge hit, and it was going to be difficult. I mean, obviously Black Panther 2 is in the works. I know that Ryan Coogler was writing it, so I guess obviously they're going to have to recast, but he was so pitch perfect in the part that you couldn't imagine anyone else playing it, really. I got to say, it's not been a great year for Marvel. Obviously his death is incredibly sad, but COVID's pushed back, and they had a very, like clockwork release schedule lined up. Black Widow, May, November, the Eternals. In between that, I think the Winter Soldier and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That was all lined up with the Disney Plus shows, with the movies. A very complex release schedule that's now been thrown into disarray. So everything's been pushed back at least a year. They've just lost their Black Panther. The series kind of peaked with Endgame anyway. And you got to wonder whether the MCU's, are the wheels coming off the juggernaut that was the MCU?
I mean, their only chance was to keep some kind of momentum going. And as you say, it feels like it ended with Endgame.
Endgame clearly was a culmination of 10 years.
Yeah.
And if you look at what they got coming up now, Black Widow is a prequel of sorts. Yeah. So Eternals never heard of. There was I am quite keen on a Sam Raimi directed Doctor Strange movie. That definitely sounds cool. But James Gunn's busy with the Suicide Squad, which has pushed back Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I would have been excited for. There'll obviously be another Spider-Man movie because Sony made $1 billion off the last one, and they're going to want more of that. But looking at what's coming up, I got to say, Phase 4 does not float my boat much. I'll be more interested to see what they're going to do with the X-Men and with the Fantastic Four.
They've always surprised us, though. I mean, like, who could have predicted Guardians of the Galaxy? Certainly when I first went to see that, I wasn't expecting much at all. I wasn't expecting it to be one of my favorite of the Marvel movies, particularly coming after, didn't it come after Winter Soldier?
It was after Winter Soldier.
Yeah, so you got Winter Soldier, which is my favorite, and then stark polar opposite, this absolute foot stomping, hilarious Drax starring Guardians of the Galaxy. So I agree with you, none of it seems on paper like it's going to be great. I mean, what is the Eternals?
Well, there's actually a lot of opportunity. As somebody who is a nerd for these sorts of things, there is massive scope in the Eternals for like big space opera. And like space opera in the way that like Marvel hasn't really done yet. So It could be
We'll
good.
see.
They've got
Yeah.
a Neil Gaiman, quite a famous Neil Gaiman entry into the Marvel comic book world with his work on the Eternals to work from. So who knows? Could be great.
Yeah.
I mean, the only saving grace they've got is it's not like they've had to freeze whilst everyone else continues. It's not like the cinematic world has moved on. Cinematic world has essentially been on ice. So if they can pick things up.
Last weekend was the Warner Brothers, DC Fandom, where they were, showing what they've got in the pipeline. And I've got to say, there's some interesting stuff coming from them. And obviously, they've already got Wonder Woman in the bag. They had the first trailer for the new Batman movie. There was the Suicide Squad sort of, sizzle reel, which looked great with James Gunn, who I couldn't think of a better director for that, really. And I'm well up for Zack Snyder's 4-hour version of Justice League. So,
God, I can't think of anything I'd rather watch less. Well, I can, but that's mainly videos of surgery. So
I mean, Phil Singh makes a good point in the chat there, which is obviously we've just had this devastating news come through. Obviously, we'll hear a bit more statement-wise and so on as things go on. Now's not the time, he says, and I agree with that. Yeah, we get that. Obviously, it's been shocking because obviously this wasn't in the public. Nobody knew about it. Obviously, people will have known about it behind the scenes, but it's shocking news. So,
I assume Marvel knew. I mean, because they have to have medicals before they can make a movie. So.
Yeah.
But he did he did keep it very quiet, understandably.
But equally, as someone was pointing out on Twitter last night, it does mean that he's not been defined by it. I mean, obviously, with hindsight, maintaining the physique he did in Black Panther. I mean, I
Endgame.
Yeah, and 21 Bridges as well.
Yeah, I do not have anything like that severely wrong with me, and I still have a physique like a duvet cover full of scrambled eggs. So in terms of motivation, that's quite something. But he wasn't defined by his illness, and I suspect that's a very deliberate thing and very admirable. And I can appreciate that. I have to be honest.
Okay, let's move on then. So, like I said earlier on, we've been away for 2 weeks, so we've had plenty of time to do things, Ed. So, what have you been up to?
I've been working. I've been messing about with lots of different kit for you guys and other people. I had. Oh God, we've lost someone though. We've lost Steve.
No, Steve's
back.
No, I'm here. I was just blowing my nose.
Oh, I see. Fair enough. Sorry. I've been business as usual. It's a tragic thing to say, but as you know, even before global pandemics, I wasn't really big for going on holiday. So I've got some interesting product lined up for you guys. And I've been I've been tinkering about with cooking, obviously doing quite a lot of barbecuing until the weather exploded. And that's the summation of my existence up until this point. I'm afraid I'm free of exciting things. I did I did a small modification to my car, Phil, but I didn't do it on Instagram because it couldn't be photoed. But I've got waterless coolant in there now because it gets so hot.
All right. Okay.
I thought, do you know what? I would quite like to do something about the fact that when you turn it off, it's like an oven. So I've got, it cost £130. It lasts for the lifetime of the vehicle, and it just essentially just boosts the ability of the car to dissipate heat. So if that's something, if you've got a car where the cooling fans are always on when you turn it off, you might want to look into that. It was very reasonable, and the fans go on for slightly less time now. So that's about the most exciting thing that happened to me.
Is it the 1888 engine that's in yours? It seems to be in everything from the S3 all the way through.
Yes. It's that, and I mean, I know that it has a reputation that when you turn it off, even in relatively non-hot days, it sits there with the fans running. But the sheer amount of heat that comes out the front and the back of it, I thought, it was something that I thought was worth a punt. So I had that done, and I also had my stupid speaker turned off as well.
Okay, cool. The one that makes all the engine noises.
The one that makes the false engine noises. Yes, that's been turned off because I couldn't snip the wire on a car I don't own. So that's it. That's me
Yeah.
in 2 weeks.
Get used to it, because when everything goes electric, that's the only way you're gonna sound like a V8 or whatever.
I
It's
don't
going
want
to
it
be
to
pumped
sound-
through the speakers.
If that's the case, but can I not have, I don't know, can I not have TIE fighter noises?
You can have whatever you like, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the thing. If we're going electric, this is the future. I want TIE fighter noises, or the light cycles in Tron. Can you imagine if being able to turn on Tron light cycle noises?
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
I'll stick to my V8, I think.
Well, okay, that's fine. But if you're in a car that makes no noise, you don't put synthetic engine noises in there. You put great sci-fi noises in there. Surely that's a no-brainer.
It'd be great if they all sounded like that and played it on the outside as well, so the pedestrians could hear you coming. That'd be fantastic.
That would be really funny.
It would get old very quickly, but it'd be funny for.
You'd be
for a few minutes.
super popular in your work in wherever you lived if you'd forgot to turn it off for your 5 o'clock airport run as you TIE fighted out of the road.
Yeah, excellent. Mentioning engine and all the rest of it, the heat. It worked yesterday for me because we went to install a new grill in my car, and it started raining. It was really cold. It's really cold up here. That's why I'm wearing a jumper.
I'm in a jumper.
It's not warm down here either.
Winter is coming.
It
So anyway, we ended up putting the car the other way around into the garage, and obviously it'd been running, so that warmed up the garage for us. So it was excellent. So we managed to get all the modifications done. I put a new grille on the front of the car. Apart from that, I had a run out today. We went up to Alston in Cumbria, which is quite high up, and it was even colder up there and windier. But it was a nice run out. We had a picnic and all that kind of thing. And the rest of the time over the last 2 weeks I've been doing a shed load of work and catching up, because we've got the Editor's Choice Awards coming up soon. We need to get lots and lots of product through. So that's what I'm doing. We're going to talk about that in the hardware section. So that's what I've been doing. Tom, what about you?
Well, lots of different things. Mostly work. This is a particularly crazy time of year where I work, so that's been pretty insane. But in between that, we've managed to get away for a weekend here and there, so that's been really lovely. Done the beach, done a zoo. It wasn't a zoo, it was like a bird place. Birdland it was called.
Not bird, what, Bird World or Birdland?
I don't know. Bird something. There were birds there.
Well, it sounds like Bird World. Was it in Surrey?
Ornithological birds.
It wasn't in Surrey.
Oh,
it
okay,
was
then.
in
Not strip club.
Yeah.
If that's got rhinos in it, Steve. That's different again.
Spicy ones.
Wait,
there's more than one chain,
I also
take
I
your word
don't know.
for
I
it.
don't think there are rhinos in Spearmint Rhino. I mean, I haven't been. I don't think there are. Like, if there are, then fair play, but no. Yeah, anyway, yeah, so we did that. We went to the beach, we dug a hole, we played in the waves. It was amazing. I read about 3 books. It was brills. That's it.
Okay, excellent. Kaz, you went to Jurassic Coast, you demolished a cliff while you were there.
Yeah.
Anything else that we missed out?
Well, it was interesting getting back to some semblance of normality. We caught the first 3 days of the week when everything was obviously discounted food-wise. And so we went out to eat every day, and it was different experiences. Some places were really fantastic, and some places were acting like there was no need for any separation whatsoever. So
yeah.
So it's interesting how different places adopted it. Everyone was packed out, but you had to book in advance, which we hadn't come prepared for. But we got a lot of walking around on the beach. It was a pebbly beach, which was not quite what was expected, but the fossil hunting was surprisingly tremendous. It was, we had a fossil hunter with us who was giving us a tour, so it wasn't just us wandering around kicking pebbles,
Smashing away at the cliffs until they fell down.
And he was pretty cool.
Alan Grant
He was
around.
very informative about the different types of fossils you could get and where you could find them, and what substance they'd been created from, informing how long they would last once you take them home, and things like that. It was very useful, and the kids absolutely loved it. And it was nice. It was just not at home. I mean, I had to work, which wasn't great, but it was still a break of some sorts. And it's probably that's it for the year. But yeah.
I just thought, whilst you reminded me on the Eat Out to Help Out, I'm not going to name him, but one of the industry PR representatives that I have done some work with, and he's submitted products to AV forums routinely over the years. He has a fondness for the oeuvre of Colonel Sanders, and he admitted that over the Eat Out to Help Out, he's done the 9 pieces for $5.99 thing, which drops down to $2.99 for 3 Tuesdays on the bounce, and then he's also bought a quantity which he's frozen for emergency use. So yeah, it was nice knowing him.
Sounds amazing.
Obviously, congestive heart failure is now a very realistic issue.
Well, I'll own up. I've been to McDonald's lately. I don't do McDonald's. I think since Vegas, it really put me off, to be honest, because it was just salty. Nothing is. But they're doing the double quarter at the moment, and I thought, oh, I've got to at least have one. So
Double
I did
quarter.
that. Double quarter pounder.
Has the Mega Mac come back? The world's most unstable burger.
No, but I read yesterday on the internet that they're bringing back the triple burger. So
dear. I still want them to the one that was only sold in Japan, McDonald's Japan, the Mega Tamango, which was like a Big Mac with extra egg and more burgers.
I thought you were going to say the Kuro burger. There is a Kuro burger.
I know there's a Kuro burger, but the Mega Tamango was the thing that it just looked so magnificently preposterous. So McDonald's, if you're listening, go for it.
Oh, National Burger Day Thursday. All right, okay, I'll do that then. I'll go and have another.
I have to say though, the revelation over being able to freeze KFC might change my life.
Oh, there was a guy in the middle of lockdown who posted on Twitter, like, they all thought I was mad when I froze KFC. I'm the only person eating it. It's like, and do you know what? I'm not ashamed to admit I was quite jealous of him. But my freezer is full, so
it's going to be full of KFCs.
But you've missed your Eat Out to Help Out opportunity. I mean,
I don't care. I'll pay full price to freeze my freezer. KFC.
Oh, there you go. That's
and they were right.
So just to wrap up on what we've all been doing, Stevie said you had movies and stuff. Anything else other than movies and stuff?
Not really.
What you didn't go and have a day out?
No, I haven't left the house since March.
No. No.
And like I've said this before, I can do 5 years of this, no worries. I tell you what I did watch though. Did anyone else watch The Strange Case of Carl Beach on Monday night?
I didn't, but it's
he made all this stuff up, but one of the reasons he did it obviously was to get a big payout as a victim. Do you know what he spent the money on, Phil? Mustang.
Mustang. Well, hey.
And I did think of you as I was watching that documentary on Monday night.
Yeah, but I didn't get mine through nefarious means.
What do you say?
I got to say, there was some shockingly poor police work going on there. I mean, I just listened to his initial statement. You're thinking like, that's clearly bullshit. Yes. And then, and they didn't check anything like medical records, school records, nothing. It was just ludicrous. I know it was post Savile and they were all like, oversensitive, but that was some shocking.
The one I did watch was I forget the guy's name now, but he set up the Ponzi scheme in the US.
Mr. Ponzi.
That caused the whole collapse.
You mean Bernie Madoff?
That's the one. I watched that. That was pretty shocking. Seeing as it had been referred to the regulator at least 5 or 6 times before it all blew up, and they couldn't find any illegal things going on. So yeah, interesting documentary that. Right, I think we're all caught up then. So we need to do current competitions, Kaz.
Yeah, sure. Although I've just found out that National Burger Day may have been last Thursday.
Well, look, we'll have to deal with the disappointment.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
You can eat a burger any day,
Well, I think that was the point made, but I want everyone to be prepared for the fact that it's not happening on Thursday. You can win a 3-film DVD box set of The High Note, Yesterday, and Dreamgirls, which closes 15th of September. Yes, very retro. Win a copy of Criterion September titles on Blu-ray, Safety Last, Showboat, Beau Travail, or 6th of October. Win a copy of The Fifth Element on 4K. That closes 15th September.
That any good?
Fifth Element. Yes, I finally got it. You know what? I got a shout out to Zoom for sending it to me a whole week after it was released when I ordered it a week before. They must have been watching Tenet.
I think there's been stock issues with that one. But
I get that for when you order it after release. But I'm a bit surprised that they didn't have them available.
Yeah, I think it was a former AV Forums contributor, David McKenzie, that did the encoding on that one, so it should be good.
Is it not the same as the one that was released in the States?
No.
No, it's different.
It is, and it's more than just Dolby Vision. It looks like it's been done with different color timing, and it's warmer. The golds are better. It's more vibrant, slightly less sharp. Not that the US presentation wasn't spectacular, it was, but it's a slightly softer, more filmic kind of look. And of course, Dolby Vision on top, it looks properly pops. Out of the two,
bare bones disc, isn't it?
Definitely pick this, but you have to keep the old one because it's empty. There's nothing. It's empty. So I don't really know why they did that, because it is Studio Canal and they're pretty good for bringing some extras. So otherwise, tremendous presentation. A bit like Leon when they redid Leon, except with more pop this time. But yeah.
Good stuff.
Okay, Spartacus 4K, that's 10th of September. Deathstroke Knights and Dragons on Blu-ray, that closes 10th of September. Five Graves to Cairo on Blu-ray, 8th of September. Pitch Black on 4K, closes 8th of September.
Great disc.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure on 4K, 8th of September. I think that's the Steelbook. I'll have to check the comp. The Woman in Black on Blu-ray, 2nd of September, and Criterion's August titles on Blu-ray, Lady Eve.
And when you say Woman in Black, is that the ITV re-release thing?
Yes.
Because that came out when I was quite young, so I didn't watch it because I was at boarding school. We didn't have television. We were just like an open prison, basically. But I was mentioning it to my parents, and it has. My mother is not particularly, passionate about television, but she watched it for real and she still regards it as one of the most pant-fillingly terrifying things she's ever watched. So I am semi-tempted to find a way to watch that.
You can enter the competition.
Yeah.
Really. If
then I need to buy a Blu-ray player, but other than that, it's fine.
If I see your name, it'll only take a certain amount of money to give it to you.
What, like £15?
Yeah, I was thinking more like 6. That'll do. You can
for a section that's supposed to be 2 minutes long, we're really doing well here.
Win a copy of Criterion's August titles on Blu-ray. Lady Eve, Marriage Story, Taste of Chariot closes 8th of September. We're also doing the podcast competition at the end to win a limited edition Blu-ray box set copy of Walkabout, which is very pretty.
Especially Jenny Agutter.
3 books.
Oh God, I knew you were going there. You filthy, filthy old man.
I love Jenny Agutter.
Sure, she was pretty young in that though. Pretty young.
She's 20.
She wasn't 20 in it.
She was 20 in Walkabout. She was 18 in the Railway Children, but she was 20 when she made.
She wasn't because they had to reclassify it by BBS.
So did we have any previous competition winners?
Says Phil, desperately dragging this forward.
Laser Eraser won a copy of Gangs of London Season 1 on Blu-ray. Krish, Gavin D and Stuart Cricket 11 won copies of Flash Gordon Blu-ray bundle, which includes a t-shirt and a bag. Guys, you'll have to wait. It's going to take a while to get the PR company to send it out to you. Sledge and Nat Loves Give won copies of Dark Waters on DVD. Adam David won a copy of Story of a Love Affair on Blu-ray. Xantaros won a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog on Blu-ray. Pink JJ27 won a copy of Superman Red Sun on Blu-ray. And Izzy Gibbo won a copy of Sorry We Missed You.
Okay, everybody, cross your fingers. We're going to hardware next. Hopefully the ident will work. Yay! It worked. Right, so hardware section. What has Steve, Ed, and I been looking at? So first of all, I'm going to crack in straight away because I've done a lot of things recently. All the reviews are up. I'm still working on a couple of TVs. So behind me, that is the Sony A8 65-inch. That is the Panasonic HZ1000, which is the same as the HZ1500, but without the speakers. Same picture quality. That box there is a TCL, but the TCL is actually sitting here. That's a box for it. So I've got a TCL C815 being worked on at the minute, as well as the Sony and the Panasonic. And I'm also expecting a Panasonic HX800 in, which is an edge-lit LCD like the TCL. And something else. Oh, yes, a Sony XH95. Which is I think it's their top line LCD TV for this year as well. So lots of things coming through. Like I say, if you look at the homepage on AV Forums, there is a review of the 55-inch CX or C10. I'll have the 48-inch version coming. somebody complained in the thread that why was I doing a 55 and 65? Well, I'm doing a 48 as well, so we covered all three of them. So that's coming up. We also did the Hisense U8QF, 104 replies, mainly from some guy who owns the TV and didn't like the fact that it got a 7 out of 10 and has just gone on and on and on and on about it in the thread. It has a few issues, that TV. It's great in terms of if you're ticking boxes, it has lots of features. It has Dolby Vision, it has HDR10+. It's got a JBL sound system, which is pretty decent. It's a full array local dimming backlight, 132 zones. It's nicely built. Hisense TVs are also
solid,
always really nicely built.
platform.
Yeah, good. Yeah, Vidu or Vida U4. It's a good system. It's a little bit laggy, but you know, everything else you're getting on the TV and the price point that's coming in at, it's good value. But it does have a few issues. One of the major issues that it has is that as soon as the luminance level drops to a certain point, the backlight switches off completely. So if you have an intro to a movie like Jaws, which is a fade to black, or fade from black, I should say, to the credits just suddenly appear on screen. There's no fade from black. So anything that fades from black upwards, the backlight switched off to then suddenly reappearing. There's a test scene that I use in Pan, which is where the ship goes through the cave tunnel and you get the Nirvana song being sung. And as it goes through there, it almost goes pitch black, but it doesn't quite go pitch black. You should still see details in the shadows and so on. It switches off and it starts flashing. So it switch off, back on, switch off, back on. So the local dimming is aggressive on it. However, if they could fix that issue, I scored it at a 7 out of 10, which is a good score. I think people see a 7 out of 10 and they'll automatically think it's a really bad score. It's not. It got a recommended badge because there's a workhorse TV in your living room. It's a really good TV, and HDR, it's well over, it's close to 1500 nits. Let me just quickly double check that I'm giving you the right information here. So 25% window at 1500 nits, 1250 nits on a 10% window. So this is good for a TV at this price point. It can do HDR, and if it's over 1000 nits, it doesn't really need a lot of help when it comes to the tone mapping. So if they could fix the little issues that I do have, and which I've put in the review, then I think it would be an 8 out of 10, maybe even pushed a 9. But as a reviewer, I think it's our duty to tell people that these things are here, whereas the comments seem to be really strange in the fact that I'm pointing these things out, and how dare I point these things out? That's not how review and reviewing works. So
yeah, that's Tesla ownership, not TV reviewing.
Yeah. So yes, it's a little bit strange, but I can understand it. If somebody owns a TV, they've got a bit of pride in it, they think it's good, and then they're not putting it through the type of testing that we're putting it through. So maybe they don't see all the issues that we do because we're putting it through lots of tests and lots of torture tests and so on. But if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be doing our job. So it's sad that some people have had to make negative comments on stuff like that, but that's the way things work. Talking about surprising TVs, the Philips OLED805. I don't know if Steve's seen the 805 yet. I've got to say, what a cracking TV that is. As long as you switch off all of Danny Tuck's picture processing, and I really like Danny, and I get on really well with Danny. We butt heads, and we know that we butt heads because I'm all about filmmaker mode and other modes that are accurate, and Danny's really clever when it comes to picture processing. Some of the things you can get the picture processing to do is really, really clever. The good thing is that it's not one or the other. The TV covers everything. So it is accurate out of the box. If you want it to be accurate out of the box, the color is good out of the box. Calibrated, you can calibrate it perfectly. Really, really good. In terms of peak brightness, they haven't done anything that Panasonic has done to the HZ2000, and I'm going to come on to HZ2000 in a second, where basically they put a heatsink on the back to dissipate the heat and obviously raise the peak brightness. Philips hasn't done any of that, but they still hit 810 nits on a 1, 2, and 5% window and 780 nits on a 10% window for an OLED. That is incredibly good figures. And this is their mid-range TV as well. So you've still got the Bowers and Wilkins TV above it, the 935, I think it is.
Yeah,
so
that could hit 900 nits, I think, from memory.
it could be. It could be. So I haven't had that in yet, but it should be coming in before we do our awards wrap up. So hopefully that'll be coming in soon. So again, it was a surprising TV. Picture quality was really good. And like I say, the HDR performance was excellent. It really was good, and almost on a par with the Panasonic. There's slight differences. The biggest difference with the Panasonic, unfortunately, is the price. It's £3,200 for a 55-inch TV. Now,
a lot of money.
The cost is in the engineering. So that's where a lot of the costs go, because they take the display. Now, people get this confused. LG Electronics makes TVs and buys their panels from LG Display, as does everybody else that makes OLED TVs at the minute. They're completely separate companies. So it's not an LG Electronics panel, it's LG Display. They're under the same umbrella, but different companies. Panasonic get the panel early, they take off the back of the panel, and they don't tell you exactly what they're going to do, because obviously it's proprietary to them, but they do put a heat sink in the back, and they tune the panel so it will produce more brightness. Now, one thing that I have noticed this year, I don't know if you've noticed it as well, Steve, but everything seems to be a little bit dimmer this year when it comes to peak brightness on these panels. It seems to be that LG Display has basically put a cap on them, or have done something where these tend to be a little bit down on last year, and that was the case with the 2000. It was a 55-inch that I checked, and it was it came in at it's 130 nits full field, and it was 838 nits on a 10% window. So that's down on last year, because last year it was just touching 900. So again, peak brightness is just one part of the HDR side of things. But yeah, it's a lot of money. And I think the best way to describe it, because the performance is there, is it £1,600 worth of extra performance against an LG or a Philips or whatever? It's there if you want it. And it's kind of like, and I hate to use a car analogy, but I'm going to, because it was my tagline on the review. This TV is the McLaren Senna of OLEDs. The other OLEDs are your everyday cars. They all get you from A to B. They all have performance. But this is like a high performance OLED TV, and that's what it's built to do, and it does it superbly well. There's no other OLED TV on the market that does white correctly, other than the Panasonics this year. So the whole range gets that right. But when it comes to just above black and the specular highlights and the dynamic range, when it comes to HDR, it is noticeable. It's not a huge leap though. So if you don't want that, go buy the cheaper TVs. They're all cracking. They're all accurate. You can see them through the reviews. But if you want the absolute best movie watching TV, Panasonic build it. But it's £3,200 for the 55. No, it's actually 3,300 for the 55-inch. And I think it's close to £5,000 for the 65. So it is a lot of money, but you're paying for the engineering. You're paying for the picture tuning. There is a difference there. And it is a best in class. But you've just got to treat it like a supercar, because that's what it is. There's not, between my Mustang, which is 450 horsepower, and the McLaren Senna, there's about the same again in terms of horsepower. Do you need it? Probably not. But if you can afford it and you want the best, Panasonic do it for you. And it comes with a sound system as well. So, you've got the Atmos sound system and so on. So I wanted to highlight those ones because we've been off on the podcast. We haven't been around while I've reviewed those ones and put the reviews out. So I've got to say this year, across the board, it's finding faults with TVs is very, very difficult. They're all doing the right thing at the minute. They're all performing really, really well. And when something does pop up that's unusual, it is unusual because of, I think the quality control is there now. Certainly with OLED. Now, is OLED going to peak any further? Probably not, unless there's a big revolution in terms of how they're producing the panels, and that could come around. But again, we've had COVID and so on. I think a lot of these models that I'm reviewing at the minute, they're going to continue into into next year, it just makes business sense that that's going to happen. So you probably find that these TVs will hang around for a little bit longer. But we've got IFA coming up, which we'll talk about a little bit later, probably in the next podcast, because it happens this week. We'll catch up on all the announcements that were made from there. But I just wanted to cover those TVs quickly, and I didn't. It wasn't quickly at all. But anyway, that's all that covered there. Right. So
I'll just say something, because I noticed in the thread, if someone disappears, that just means they've turned off their camera for a second to do something. Don't worry, they haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
It's we can't do the back in a sec graphics, so
with Zoom.
Doesn't work with Zoom.
You just drop
So.
out. But it does mean that we, on the plus side for our convenience, we don't have to ask Stuart for permission to go to the toilet with this system, which I have to be honest, as a 39-year-old man, I think that's a step forward. Regaining control over my own bladder is good. And speak of the devil, Tom has returned. So there you go.
What?
Right. So we've got 15 minutes for Ed and Steve to go through their thing. So let's go to Steve first, because he is talking about hardware. New Arcam product, Steve?
Well, you say new. I think it's been out for about 8 months, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's taken a while for them to get to us. I mean, I still haven't seen the processor that I'm supposed to be looking at. So
I think it's fair to say that the launch of this generation of Arcam products has not gone entirely smoothly. There were quite a few bugs initially. I don't know for sure, but you get the feeling that it may have been slightly rushed. It's a bit of beta testing in public. They didn't perhaps learn the lesson I thought they'd learned, because the previous generation was rock solid from day one. However, by the time we got review samples, I think they had ironed out most of the issues. Certainly my experience of I had the AVR30, which is the flagship AV receiver. There's also the AVR40, which is AV40, which is what I think you're supposed to be getting, Phil.
I've got the SA30, which is the yes, it's the stereo integrated.
Yeah. So I looking through owners threads, the owners thread, or the Arcam owners thread. Yes. Obviously, there's quite a lot of people who have had a rough time of it over the last few months, 6 months, with their product waiting for. But there have been numerous firmware updates. When I had it, I was running at the time the most recent firmware, and my overall experience of it was pretty good. I mean, it was not pretty good. My overall experience was excellent, and I didn't have personally any real issues using it. Now, I'm not a big streamer, and Ed can probably pitch in with some comments on that side of things, because I know you do that more than I do. From my perspective, the AVR30, it's you're buying that for Atmos DTSX. It's also got Auro 3D, which is new this generation, and it can decode up to 16 channels. It's got 7 channels built in, 7 channels of Class G, and then you can do up to 16. Obviously, you need to add additional amplification, which I did. So I ran it as a full 9.2.6 system. And it's got the latest version of Dirac, which again for me worked fine. I mean, I had no problems whatsoever running that. It did a fantastic job. And so from the point of view of the AV side of things, I think it's a fantastic receiver. This new generation, I will say, I think the look of them, bit of maybe not the best design. It looks cheaper than it actually is. But the silver volume dial, but the new display is a definite step up from the old dot matrix one that used to be used. The new LCD display is a full color display. It's just really good. However, there's no on-screen display, so you actually have to use either use the app, the on-screen display, the actual display on the amplifier on the receiver, or you can control it via the internet, via web-based control. But there's no actual on-screen display, which is a strange decision on their part. It's got built-in Wi-Fi, built-in Bluetooth, so that's great. No more having to do a wired connection, and it has got EARC, and it will pass HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision. However, it doesn't do full HDMI 2.1. So I'm sure that's going to be a lot of people will have an issue with that, because obviously a lot of the receivers that are coming out now, the most recent announced Yamahas seem to have, given what Denon was saying about only having one Yamaha have clearly said, "Oh, sod that, we're going to shove in loads of them." So there are receivers coming out that have got lots of HDMI 2.1 connections. This has none, so that might be an issue. I'm not sure whether there'll be any kind of update. I know that Denon, for example, and some of the higher end brands, are going to do updates for certain things, like the 8500 for Denon are going to add or give the option to add 2.1, but not so with the AVR30 as far as I'm aware. So it's got some things that I'm glad to see, some things people might think should have, but it does have EARC, as I say. It's got the same remote control, which it means that it's annoyingly you have to remember to press the amp button, otherwise it won't control the amplifier anymore. It drives me nuts every time it does it. You still can't allocate the built-in amplification to different channels. So in other words, the 7 channels do front, left, right, center, and then the surround channels you can't reallocate to something else and then use a different amplifier for front, left, and right, for example, which is a shame. I did actually ask them to do that on the previous generation, but you still can't. And they haven't. One little annoying thing is that when you allocate channels further down, so 15 and 16, for example, you'll be allocating to the width channels. It doesn't actually tell you which one's left and which one's right. I just guessed based upon how they allocated the previous channels.
That they could.
Well, yeah, they could just mention it somewhere, even in the manual, but they don't. So I had to guess. I got it right, but it was a pure guess. So there's some teething problems there. But what I will say is that once I got it set up, once I'd run Dirac, from my experience, in terms of Atmos, I did test it with Auro 3D, but I don't have an Auro 3D setup of speakers. They're not set up for that. But with Atmos and DTSX, it sounded absolutely awesome. Watching Midway, for example, was an absolute joy. The Battle of Midway itself, there's just planes flying all over the room. It was absolutely brilliant. The steering, the bass management, it was just top draw. And obviously the Class G amplification's got plenty of oomph. And I obviously used my Motiva to add the other channels. And yeah, overall it was a cracking experience. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a really great receiver. I appreciate it's had its issues. It's been a long time coming, and it's had a lot of firmware updates. But I think there might be a few minor issues still to be fixed, which Ed could probably attest to. But and certainly in terms of the AV aspect of it, the immersive audio side of things, I think it absolutely delivered the goods.
I mean, the manufacturers, they are pushing the envelope a little bit when it comes to the software behind these things, and they're not going to get it right all the time. Stevie DR mentions that a few of us beta testing the NAD T778. I certainly am at the moment, and I know you sent me a PM, and I'll get back to you, Stevie, on what you've highlighted so far from your ownership, because most of the things that you mentioned in that, I've seen them on the review sample I've got here, but they're just little niggly things. The rest of it, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, it does seem to be that there's a little bit of beta testing going on. Right, Ed, you have 8 minutes.
Right. Well, very quickly, yes, I have had the Arcam SA30 stereo integrated. My thoughts broadly echo Steve's. I'm not going to go into extended detail. I will say that I did make the sample briefly unwell performing a software update. But it didn't need to go anywhere. It was made well again in situ. And no one had to come around. I just received instructions on how to make it well again, and it was fine. But that really is an aberration based on me apparently doing something weird, which I'm good at. There's a lot to like with this amplifier. I'm not so thrilled about the streaming interface because I probably was asking it to do more things than Steve. I just don't think it's a great method of browsing a large library. But equally, the SA30 is able to operate as a Roon endpoint. And I believe actually the AV receivers can as well if you want.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, of course.
Obviously we've discussed this. Roon is not cheap, but it is a fantastic user experience, so it's well worth the effort. That's not what I wanted to go on about in my now presumably 6 minutes. I have written a piece which is sat in the tank. It goes live tomorrow. I am embarking on a project to which I need all of your help, which should alarm all of you. But essentially, I have been delighted at the sort of feedback that we've had from some of the album lists that appeared over lockdown, and there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of interest in music, and there's a lot of people who know a lot of things about genres that I know nothing about. So I believe tomorrow, Phil might be able to confirm on this, a piece is going up where I outline what I have tentatively called the Deep Dive Project, where we're going to look at creating 50 album lists of specific genres of music, which will be largely compiled by members themselves. Because yeah, if you want me to do 50 albums of French electronica, yeah, not a problem. I'll be there starter for 10. But there are many genres where I simply can't do that. So I need you guys to participate. So tomorrow, I believe there's a piece going up. So tomorrow, this is being recorded on the Sunday. On Bank Holiday Monday, a piece is going to go up which outlines the principles by which we might start compiling this material together. It's going to sit for the best part of the month because, as Phil mentioned earlier, we've got editor's choice things. So I will be setting to work with the entire UK output of Bluetooth and wireless loudspeakers for September, which is going to be fun. But I'd like you guys to consider the mechanics of how it's going to be done. And the idea is that what I want to create is a series of lists, and it's going to walk the fine line between, I don't want to recommend Beatles and Pink Floyd and their equivalents in various genres, because that's a statement of the blindingly obvious. I'd like to go one layer deeper without disappearing basically up our own arseholes and just becoming desperately pretentious. It's going to be a fine line. It's going to require arguing. It's going to require balance. It's going to require nuance. But nevertheless, I think the collective wisdom and resource of what people know about music on the forum is phenomenal. And if we can start to share that in a constructive way, and we can learn from each other about genres that we don't know a huge amount, I think it stands to be a very, very, could potentially be a really, really fun thing to do. Ironically, there has already been one modification. Tom very kindly Skyped me and pointed out that I was missing 2 genres. So that's been corrected. So we've got the full set now, and hopefully, and yeah, I value your feedback on how we start the process, which is what this first piece will do. And from there, over the course of realistically a year, we're going to hopefully create some decent material, which will help us to enjoy more music and get more out of genres that we haven't spent much time with
Did you
ourselves.
include skiffle?
Not yet.
I mean, jazz.
No, look, now you see there are a number of genres, world in particular. I mean, this is the world that does enormous chunks of music a grave disservice. But if we broke world down into all of its genres, I'd spend a year doing enormous quantities of world music, which would suit me fine. But ultimately, I've suggested the genre breakpoints, and if you feel that there's genuine case to break them or combine them, that's what I'm looking for in this piece. And I've given a suggestion of how we go about doing album nominations. If someone has a better suggestion, I'm genuinely open to it, because what I've tried to do is use the tools and hardware of the forums as it already exists. I don't want to have Google Docs and all sorts of other madness. So that's what I've tried to do. Hopefully we can do something fun with that, and I will come back and I'll participate in the thread obviously when I can. But hopefully, once we've put editor's choice to bed, I can crack on with that and at least have something together so that I can, get festively drunk and do the 50 Christmas albums by December. So,
I mean, this could transfer over to film, couldn't it? I mean, Phil Sings just mentioned there that maybe Kaz and Tom should be paying attention to this and maybe doing the same thing for movies.
Well, shall I trial run it?
I think that's what we should do. Yeah.
Yes, I'll make all the mistakes, and then you can deal with it from there. Yeah, and the other one that I'm determined to do in terms of the crossover to films, both film soundtracks and film scores, they are separate entities, and they are very determinedly separate entities. But that's obviously something where I look forward to having a massive argument about as well. So good.
Okay, just before we wrap up on the hardware, and we've got about 60 seconds to do this, Fergie B has donated. Thank you very much, Fergie. And he has a question. He says, "Hi, lads. I'm thinking of upgrading my OLED B7. Retailer near me, Republic of Ireland, says the 55 B10 is coming in at €1350. A good buy or wait?" I would suggest that you wait. Like I say, these models are going to be around probably a little bit longer this year. Those prices will come down. LG have been competitive this year with the lineup. If you can push to a C10, I'd point you in the direction of a C10. Or
well, yeah, because if you got a B7, don't forget that generation B7, C7, they were the same TV, just different stand. The B and the C generation series now in the
different processors.
9 and 10 generations and the 8 generation are different TVs, slightly different processor. You might want to consider 55C9 as well if you're still around.
Yeah, if you can still get that, then
and
I think that would be a better TV than the B10. I haven't seen the B10 yet. I have asked LG. They seem to be taking their time coming through.
Are they still having UK service?
BBC iPlayer should now be on the LG 2020. So they're starting to come through. So that should be there.
The rest are still missing.
Yeah, the rest are still missing at this moment in time. So don't buy the TV thinking they will come, but hopefully they should get all that up there. But like I say, or like Steve said as well, C9 is probably better than a B10, to be honest, in terms of the processor, picture quality, that kind of thing, and the fact that you've got Freeview Play on the C9. So yes, thank you very much for your support, Fergie B. And that's it for hardware. We'll be back in a sec with software. Okay, so it did say movies on the ident there, but obviously it's software. So we are going to cover, and this going forward, we are going to cover music and music services and streaming as well as films, because it's all software. And we might even get some of the games team on in future podcasts to talk about games, because seemingly games are a thing as well. But who knew?
But only if their parents let them stay up that late.
So games are a thing. That's. I think that's my highlight of the podcast.
In my world, yeah, it's I was gaming back in the 80s, Tom, where if you got so far into a level and you died, you didn't get a save point or anything like that. You went all the way back.
I don't know how old you think I am. I'm not actually.
You're 12, aren't you?
That's quite a good beard for a 12-year-old.
I was also gaming in the 80s.
Yes, I do jest, but yeah, I gave up on it. It didn't grip me. So anyway, that's what we're going to add to this section of the podcast. It's software, so it will include movies and discs and all that kind of thing. So anyway, before we get on to movies, we've got a big tentpole movie to discuss in amongst all our best of the months, because it is the end of the month. Ed's going to give us his album, vinyl, and playlist.
Yes, I'll be brief because I suspect that Tenet is going to take a bit of time to unpick, and I can use that time to do something else. Right, album of the month. There were a lot of good albums released this month. I wasn't prepared for August to be as good as it was, but my God, it really was really good. But after some deliberation, my album of the month is Imploding the Mirage, the latest album by The Killers, mainly because after two really disappointing albums, I genuinely didn't think they had anything left in them. But my God, that's a magnificent album. Just a spellbinding listen from start to finish. They've used guest musicians and vocalists to fantastic effect, but they've done it, and it's just an enormous homage to Springsteen and bits of the 80s and all the rest of it, but it still sounds like a Killers record. It's magnificent. One of the reasons it's my album of the month is that I haven't listen to the vinyl copy yet, and if you are on Tidal, Qobuz, or Amazon Music HD, there are very, very good high-res versions of that album for you to enjoy. So I'm sure the vinyl release will be perfectly okay, but that's the one that you should just be listening to however you see fit. Vinyl release of the month, this very nearly was my album of the month as well. Gregory Porter. He has released an album called All Rise. It's Gregory Porter doesn't necessarily do anything particularly radical, but my God, this is a good listen. Really, really lovely album to listen to. And the reason it's my vinyl release of the month is because it is a Blue Note recording. So the vinyl release, there is a 3-disc half-speed master, which was done in the UK under the honours of Blue Note. And my copy hasn't arrived yet. I'm not going to lie, it's pretty expensive, but I have every confidence it will sound jaw-droppingly good. If you don't fancy dropping 30 odd pounds on a piece of vinyl, I'm going to invite ridicule from both listeners and Phil. Eurasia, remember them? Well, they released an album this month called The Neon. And the vinyl release of that, you can buy it direct from their website for 19 quid in bright orange, if that does you in. That's fantastic. I mean,
Is that Erasure?
Yeah, as
Oh.
in the 80s people.
Okay.
And basically, they revisited what they did in the first 3 albums for this. It doesn't break any new ground at all, but it's wonderful. And the vinyl release is spellbindingly good. Yeah, those would be my 2 vinyl releases of the month. And then to playlists, conversely, we had great album releases. I mean, I haven't even meant to scratch the surface of album releases. We had Yellow release an album. They don't do that very often, and it's very good. Playlist, by the other hand, nobody cares anymore. People have given up curating content because they're lazy and they're relying on their Deezer Flow, Spotify algorithms and all the rest of it. But Rock Road Trip on Deezer was reasonably tolerable to listen to on the way home this evening. So that is the low bar by which I've nominated that.
It is sad that they're leaving it to the algorithms because
I agree, but the point, I got to be honest, Phil, I just don't seek playlists out like I was. I mean, the last playlist that was really something I was on the hot button for was that curated electronica playlist that Tidal was doing. And I can't even remember what the damn thing was called.
Blips and Blobs.
Blips and Blobs. That was magnificent, but nothing has been on, in my wheelhouse the same way that has. For a long, long time. For the most part, it's either inviting the musician of the moment to just throw something together, or it's just curated highlights of specific musicians. I mean, if you're feeling still nostalgic, obviously, if you're still sad about Chadwick Boseman, Tidal has got some curated music from the scores of the films that he was in, but it does seem a trifle half-hearted. It doesn't break any new ground. And whilst I thought the Black Panther score was good, it's good when it's being used in Black Panther. It's not necessarily something I want to sit down and listen to on its own ground. I mean, to be honest, the number of scores where that is the case is not particularly common. So that's not me dissing Black Panther. That's just me being critical. So yeah, unfortunately, playlists aren't as good. But album-wise, I haven't even. I could have frustrated Kaz and Tom by blasting on until well past 8:30. But it's been a really good, really good month for it. Have a listen, have a play, see what's out there. But that's my choices.
I just want to mention an album. If you like your John Williams, there's a new album out. It came out at the beginning of the month, Live in Vienna. It is absolutely amazing. It's also available in Dolby Atmos on Amazon HD, which I don't have. But I have asked Dolby to send me the Blu-ray, so you can buy the CD and it comes with a Blu-ray. The Blu-ray has more tracks on it, and it's all done in Dolby Atmos. So I have asked Dolby. Hopefully they will send that through, and I will do a review and mention it again on the podcast. But in terms of recording, it's one of the best recordings I've heard for a while. The
2496 on Qobuz, the Jurassic Park main theme, another product that will be going through in the cycle for next month. Let's just say it had its own height. It had height built in by the nature of its design. Absolutely sensational. I mean, I love the Jurassic Park overture anyway, but that was just wonderful.
No, there's lots of pieces of music in there that I know incredibly well because I've had different versions of them, different recordings and so on, for decades. E.T. and Indiana Jones and Jaws and all that kind of thing. To hear them all in one concert recorded, obviously for Atmos and height channels and all the rest of it, I can't wait to hear it in Atmos because I think it will sound incredible. So that's my suggestion for album. It's available CD, Blu-ray. It's on all the streaming services.
Yeah.
It's on
high-res
Tidal.
download as well. If you're an owned streaming thing, it's Deutsche Grammophon, and they do do a very, very good job across all of those media. So yeah.
Excellent. Right, so let's move on to movies.
I've got an album.
All right, go on, Steve, quickly.
The Water Boys. Good luck, Seeker.
I thought that was pretty good as well. He
cracking
needs to update his Ableton software for some more modern electronic noises. That's what I'm saying. But no, the actual Water Boys content is very good.
Yeah, good stuff. Right. So that was 9 minutes. So I'm going to add that onto the movie side of things, because we have got the first tentpole movie, I think, for a very long time to discuss. So, Kaz, why don't you give us a brief spoiler-free, no spoilers, roundup. Tom, have you seen it yet, Tom?
Yeah, I don't know how he's going to talk about it without spoilers.
It's going to be short.
Review.
I don't care.
No, don't spoil it, because it's only just out and people are battling with themselves about whether they're going to go to the cinema or not. So let's just wrap up the movie and then we can talk about the main thing, which is, are we going to go and see it? Are we going to go to the cinema?
Yeah, I did it in the review, so I don't think it'll be that hard. I mean, it's Christopher Nolan, so you're going to expect it to be mind-numbingly convoluted and complex, really hard to fathom. Got to watch it 4 times if you want to make head or tail of it. It's a little like Memento in the sense of pieces of a puzzle that you've got to put together. It's just 2.5 hours of that. I can't imagine anyone walking into that and having all the answers when they walk out. It's a fabulous experience. It's a proper big screen event movie, and thrummingly intense bass, fabulous imagery. It's got.
Did you understand the dialogue? More important to the point.
Oh, don't. That's a whole podcast of itself.
Now, is it done deliberately though? Because sometimes directors do this. They will muffle.
Sure,
it.
Chris Nolan does it in all his films.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. So it is quite clear that he has zero respect for his audience, he being able to understand the dialogue that's being spoken in films that are already pretty incomprehensible.
Oh, great.
So no, I mean,
that and the changing aspect ratios. You know what? Nolan can sod off. I'm getting sick of it. He's not as clever as he thinks he is.
I would say that I can see why people think that he might have gone too far this time, because I like that he challenges us. It's an extremely difficult movie to get through and get on board with. It's a puzzle within a puzzle within a puzzle, fantastically designed. He spent 10 years putting it together. I'm sure he could write out the entire timeline and structure and everything that happens, and it makes sense.
Just sounded like the architect in the Matrix.
Yeah. Yes.
You're a puzzle within a puzzle within. I mean, because that's the largest load of bollocks I've seen on screen.
But but the difference.
Yeah, anyone that uses the words concordantly.
I mean, I mean, the difference here is that I think that he knew exactly what he was doing. The trouble is that, at least for me, he could have done with making it a little bit more personal and heartfelt. Inception had DiCaprio's character needing to see his kids again. Interstellar was the same. He wanted to see his daughter again. This one is out and out Bond by comparison, very kind of cold about man on a mission. And it's quite a long time to be on board this really crazy, convoluted journey where you don't quite feel involved with the characters. Maybe the story, although what the hell was that about? But the characters, Anyway, it's a very good big screen movie that you have to see. Very frustrating, possibly a little bit flawed. Possibly he's gone too far. Incomprehensible dialogue. Maybe it doesn't matter as long as you get it on disc and watch it with subtitles.
I did know,
but Kaz, isn't it?
That's a failure.
Isn't it the case though that sometimes with his films he's deliberately wants you to work it out, and he's not going to give you the right and wrong answers. He'll never do that, but he wants to pose you questions and so on. And a lot of the timelines, I'm not going to discuss Tenet because I haven't seen it, but certainly looking at other films like Dunkirk, you have to watch that 2 or 3 times just to get your head around the timeline. Because I know it says it at the start what the timeline is, but it took me about 2 viewings before I managed to work out that not all of
yeah.
it's happening at the same time and so on.
I
So he likes to do that. He likes to make you work.
I agree. I think that it's very good to have a film that challenges you. In fact, it'll be one of the most talked about films of the year, and rightly so. It's a rare
Well,
thing
in
to
so
have
much
a
as it
film
came
that's
out in a cinema.
this challenging. Yeah, but it probably would have always been. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a proper cerebral film, for good or bad.
Yeah,
But
the thing that like my initial reaction to it, and I'm going to offer a dissenting opinion because I did not love this
Yeah,
movie.
Tom
I
did
did
not.
not love it. I think there is. I personally had a lot of niggly little. I love to come out of a movie confused. That means I can go away and think about
Yeah,
it and talk
yeah.
about it. And Tenet has just been a gift because even though I didn't love it, I've got so much to talk about with other people who've seen it. And it so rarely happens that you can just have an hour and a half conversation with someone to be like, yeah, but this, oh, but that. And it does its job in creating a talking point for everyone who sees it.
I
Like,
did like the fact that the Guardian review covered some other things, but my favourite comment from that was that they believe that this is peak beard in cinema. I just like the fact that that's something that they've been keeping track of.
They also said in the review something about Robert Pattinson's character is like a sort of like sort of bargain basement Bond who's been shopping for scarves in Banana Republic.
Robert Pattinson's character in it is basically Tom Hardy in Inception. There's nothing wrong with him or his accent or his dress. I mean, the cast is superb. Kenneth Branagh does another great turn with a Russian accent after I think he did it for
disagree.
Didn't he
Ryan.
do that in
Yeah.
Shadow
He
Recruit?
did it in that, and I thought he was very good in this proper intimidating opponent, Bond style.
I heard Elizabeth Debicki's underused, which is a shame.
She is
'cause she's
used
No,
in
actually-
exactly the same way as she is used in The Night Manager.
She
is
is,
an
yes,
indistinguishable character.
But
from The Night Manager.
but I still liked her. I thought she was very good, and I probably cared about her more than I did about the protagonist. But that said, Washington is you close your eyes and he's every bit as dad.
Sounds exactly like his
yeah,
dad,
he
doesn't
does. He's got it nailed, and also he's got one particular scene in a kitchen fairly early on. It's total Bond. I mean, he should Nolan for the first act of the movie could be staging the best Bond film you've ever watched.
I suppose it explains why he didn't do the Bond film then, because he was doing a Bond film as it was.
Yes, I mean, no. If he did do a Bond film, someone on the Bond side would get him to rein it in. But if you wanted a proper cerebral,
I don't know if I
Bond
wanted
thriller, it'd be like-
if he was going to do a Bond film, I'd want it to be on the hollowed out volcano layer space station. It's called a Bond. I don't want this low key real Bond. I want.
I don't know. You see the finale, you'll be impressed by the scale to it.
Well, when it
Very
eventually
elaborate
turns
movie.
up on BBC, I'm sure I'll watch it.
It's got all of the tropes of Bond. It's got the.
Well, it's going to be a movie that we're going to talk about, and we're going to come back to it on the podcast. I don't want to do a spoiler at the moment because I think people are still wrestling with the whether they're going to go to the cinema to see it or whether they're going to wait till it's released on some other format, whether it's streaming or disc or whatever. And it is a bit of a test for cinemas at the minute as well. It's the first tentpole movie that we've had for a while. I think everybody's looking at it and they'll make an assessment at some point as to how things are going to move forward with the cinema. Because certainly for me, one of the things that's putting me off is I think if I had a cinema where I could just walk into the cinema and everything's in place, social distancing and so on, I would probably go. The thing is, to get to the cinema that I go to, I've got to walk through a shopping centre. Massive shopping centre, so and that really puts me off at the minute to go and do that. So for me, I really miss my cinema. I really do miss my cinema. But at the minute, for me personally, it's not something I'm going to go and do. I know Steve is probably the same on that. I think you're going to.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to the cinema again.
I think for anyone who's on the fence, for anyone who's not sure if they're going to do a cinema trip this year, if you do one, it should be this, because this
No,
is.
if you do one, it should be Dune, assuming it comes out.
Assuming
Yeah,
it
but
comes out.
who knows what will happen?
Yeah. But yeah,
Christmas.
like I'm not sure Tenet will still be going at Christmas, will it? Maybe
No, I mean June. I mean, you never know what'll change in the landscape.
No, I know.
Sure. But like,
I'm
yeah,
assuming.
if you're on the fence, like if you're seeing the cinema as like a possibility in the future, then this will be the thing to go and see.
I think it'll still be playing. I think this will be around for a number of months, to be honest with you. Because what else are they going to show?
There's
New Mutants. They could go into the.
Oh yeah, you saw that.
Amazing.
Was it worth a
Great.
3-year wait?
Loved it every second. 3-year wait. Not. I've been waiting for it since it was announced in 2015.
5 glorious years.
Yeah.
It was
Phil
awesome.
Phil Singh says go to a different cinema, Phil. The reason I go to the one that I go to is basically it's down to car parking. There is a smaller one in Durham, but there's nowhere to park your car. And I'm not using public transport. So that's the reason why I'm not going at the minute. I want to go to that one because I know where I can park safely.
Well,
and so
you can park your car in the other cinema, Phil. What you mean is there's nowhere to park a Mustang.
yeah.
No, actually,
I mean,
Let's be specific here.
I did get very lucky because where I went, it's got loads of car parking. It's out of town. It's got a lot of screens, and I got lucky. I have to say, I was quite relieved to see an earlier showing, which wasn't the X Plus one, because I'd heard really terrible reports that the audio was even worse than the X Plus ones. That is the thing that I think might put some people off, because I managed to understand most of the dialogue. There may be 10% I missed, particularly right at the end, which of course wouldn't be important at all. But if you want to go and see it, you kind of want to know that the showing you see, you hear the right dialogue. And there's plenty of reports where people have had to walk out. And I didn't have to walk out, but I mean, I can see where they're going. So it's almost like you need a list of cinemas where they've got it right.
Yeah. If you're going to see it in IMAX is probably the only showing where it should be correct, because the cinemas.
What's the aspect ratio, by the way? Sorry.
Half of it was IMAX, I think.
Does it change from shot to shot? And
I didn't notice it change.
No, I don't think so. No, it's not. No.
So it's scope ratio the whole way?
Yeah. That's what I saw.
Right.
So
you didn't see it in an IMAX screen, though, did you?
No.
So in IMAX, it is in IMAX, because I think half of the film was shot in IMAX. If you see it in IMAX, then the audio should be fine, because IMAX are really, really strict with cinema chains. They're not allowed to mess with anything. It has to be calibrated by one of their professionals on a regular basis. And the cinemas are not allowed to touch the projection system or the audio system or anything like that. So technically, that should be the best way to see the film. It might not, but
the only thing I'd
be.
say, Phil, is I think the problem isn't that the cinemas are messing with it. I think the problem is that the only way that you can hear it properly is if the cinemas mess with it.
Yeah,
so what Nolan has done is he's created a mix which is too bassy, so you can't hear the dialogue. And so if they play it the way he wants people to hear it, you won't hear the dialogue. It's a bit like when everyone went to see Ghost Protocol and they saw the preview to Dark Knight Rises and you couldn't hear Bane.
And then they altered it in the edit, didn't they?
Yeah, they altered it because of pressure from the public, who said that doesn't work. No one had.
They had a point.
Yeah,
they had a point.
But that's what Nolan wants.
It's the same here.
That's his.
Towards the end of the movie, there's stuff spoken over a microphone that I don't think anyone can hear.
And he's got to the point now, like Dark Knight Rises, you say you've got oversight for that, because you've got an entire company saying, do this way for our character. With something like Tenet, Nolan's just going to do whatever he wants, and he's going to have no one there telling him, rethink that. It's a bit of a bit of George Lucas syndrome. He thinks his mix is how it should be, and he's. I mean,
I think I'll wait for the disc.
Yeah. So you
wait for the subtitles.
For sure.
But the point I was making is, if you do want to see it as it's produced, it should be IMAX. Should be the way that is, because they're not allowed to touch it, or they'll lose their license to be an IMAX theater. So anyway, let's move it on, because we still got to do best of the month.
So quick question: is anyone going to pay 20 quid to see Mulan this week?
No.
Well,
Yeah, maybe.
I will. 20 quid seems pretty reasonable not
yeah,
to go to
yeah,
the
maybe,
cinema.
yeah, maybe.
when
If-
it was looking at
If they
30 or
released
25.
Tenet at the cinema and made it available for 20 quid for video on demand, I'd
Yep.
have happily paid that 20
Sure.
quid and
Yep.
bought the disc in 3 months' time. So they got double bubble out of me. So I don't understand why people can't go to the cinema. Well, I mean, I know cinemas are open, but a lot of people, like for example, Phil, don't want to go to cinema for a number of reasons. But one of them is, that you're a high risk group and you don't want to die just to see a movie. So if they gave you the option of VOD as well, which seems sensible under the circumstances, I'm not talking about being the normal release schedule, but these are unusual circumstances. I think people who aren't going to go, like people like me or Phil, who are not going to go and see it at the cinema and will wait for the disc, would have probably shelled out 20 quid to see the movie.
Yeah, I
this
would have,
week.
and like you say,
And I would have probably, and I'll buy
bought
the
the
disc as
disc,
well.
yeah.
So I think they're missing a trick. Now, maybe that's got something to do with the cinema chains and the agreements they got with them.
Yeah, it has.
But I think
Must
under
have.
the circumstances, and these are very unusual circumstances, I think people should be given the choice. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm really pissed off that Bill and Ted, which was released this weekend in the States, VOD and limited cinema release for cinemas that are actually open in America. But we're not getting it till 23rd of September, and it's a cinema only release. And thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
So I would have paid 20 quid. Now I'll just wait to watch it on Amazon Prime when it comes up for free.
Yeah. Talking about Bill and Ted very, very quickly, did you see Red Letter Media, Steve? Did they
Yeah, I watched
review?
it. In fact, as soon as I watched it, I
Brilliant.
ordered Bill and Ted in 4K
Brilliant.
disc.
Yeah, because certainly the second film, I'd forgotten just how out there it was, and I want to see it again. I really
The
do.
second one is way better than the first one.
That's what you assure me, Tom. I'm gonna watch it this week.
It's facts. It's facts.
Well, I can't find the second one. It's not available
No.
on disc at the moment.
No, it's
All right,
you'll
okay.
find,
It's
yeah.
going to be a streaming job in standard def just to get it done.
Right, before we
can't
go
do
on
that.
to
Can't do
Best
that.
of the Month, Martin Gillespie, thank you very much. Martin has just become a patron. So thank you for your support, Martin.
Thank you.
I mentioned
Hello,
Fergie
Martin.
B before. Fergie, he donated £5. Thank you very much. Once again, Fergie B. If you want to make a donation, then you can go ahead and do that. There are two ways. There's two things that you can do. If you want to ask a question or just make a one-off donation, you do that streamlabs.com/AV forums, and we'll definitely answer and ask a question, and then answer it. That's the way around, isn't it? One or the other. Or if you want to support us on a regular basis, you can do that through Patreon, patreon.com/AV forums, and it's a monthly subscription for that, and you are a long-term supporter. If you do either of those, thank you very much. You do help us improve our features, site speed, AV forums in general, and our editorial. And one day, like I say, one day we'll do a good podcast.
Yeah, we'll start a podcast on time. Keep donating.
We did start on time, because no one could see it.
This is our space program.
Right, let's wrap up then with the best of the month. So best film of the month.
Don't know, ain't seen any. I mean,
It's-
cinema
we-
films.
All
New
right.
Mutants for Tom.
Yeah. Loved it. All the way.
Okay. 9 for me. I haven't watched
No, I
anything.
Well,
new.
Project Power, that was all right. I watched that on Netflix.
It was all right.
Okay.
It was.
Quite enjoyed
I
that.
think we're the only two people
what
who
it was.
thought it was all right, but it was all right.
Ringing endorsement. Okay, well, that's good news.
I didn't have to watch it, so I'm happy.
Right.
Well, I mean, for me, it's for all of my misgivings, I'd probably give Tenet. Well,
Tell you what, after your review of it, I'm definitely
Yeah,
not
I'm
going to bother
sorry,
seeing it.
that's
It sounded
well-
bloody awful.
Well down the list of things that I can be bothered.
look, come on. I mean, you don't get many films like that though. It's still a must see, and there aren't that many must sees this year.
This, do you know what
Oh.
it do you know what it sounds like though, Kaz? It sounds like that the viability of cinema is it's the equivalent of the viability of music venues being entirely dependent on a Yola Tango album, and it's sort of for people that like Yola Tango. That's
It's nothing like that. Like I said to begin with, like I'm not in love with this movie, not by any stretch of the imagination, and I had a bit of a grudge towards it when I came out of it, but I do agree that it is kind of a must see. It's going to be one of those things that polarizes people.
Yeah.
So
good.
yeah,
Well.
for sure.
Well, we'll
Right.
see. But
Do you see Tom Cruise going to see it? He's getting quite excited, isn't he?
Yeah, he looked quite excited.
Was he being paid for that, or was he just really excited to go back to the cinema?
With Tom Cruise, it's always hard to say. I just occasionally think that he does things out of the sheer unbridled joy he finds of being Tom Cruise.
Yes. Also, I think he'd always support a movie like that because he wants to be doing crazy.
Because he's hoping that Christopher Nolan will come and see Top Gun.
Oh God, imagine.
I suppose he's just relieved that he's not going up against it.
Yeah.
With, Top Gun.
Well, he's only going to do that in the UK. I remember it's going to be day and date. No, it wasn't. We had a delay because of football, was it? I think football or something.
It would.
No, it would have been the Euros. Yeah, it'd have been the Euros.
It was football.
Foot what?
Yeah, I was so angry about that at the time. Anyway, moving on.
In the great scheme of things. Yeah.
So I am completely lost here. What was the film of the month?
Tenet.
All right. Okay. Right. We should have a bit more success with 4K UHD Blu-rays, hopefully. So, Steve, what's your disc of the month?
Hands down, my disc of the month is Flash Gordon. I couldn't believe how good that looked. It was a superb 4K restoration and an awesome box set with loads of goodies. But yeah, I mean, I saw that at the cinema, and I've seen it a few times since, and it's always looked crap. and I know the effects aren't brilliant, but it just looked a million times better.
And they've cleaned up some of the effects, haven't they?
It's scrubbed up well.
Better, looked better now. It did. No, it did. I mean, obviously the costumes and the sets were always going to look good on a decent restoration and transfer. But I was gobsmacked at how good it looked, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So
the Dolby Vision works a treat on all that gold and red, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, a film that colourful is always going to come off well with a wider colour.
Yeah, I'm going to pick it up in the 2 for 30 or whatever when it gets there. I'll pick it up eventually. I saw it on Sky.
I think it will, because it's a limited edition box set, isn't it? I mean,
it's a big I'll just have to miss it then. I'm not paying all that money for Flash Gordon. Sorry. Right, so that's Steve's. Kaz, what's yours?
I'm pretty sure I said Flash Gordon for last month. Maybe because I got the disc early. But I mean, Flash Gordon is the winner, but I'm going to say...
Well, it came out in August, and this is the August thing,
yes,
right?
but I think I had it before August. I seem to remember Phil letting me have a pass on saying it because I had the disc in hand. Pitch Black, then I'd go with, which... Yeah, looks tremendous. Great. They've done a spectacular job, and the color schemes.
But the grain
is pop. Oh, don't.
Were there a couple of shots where there was quite a dark scene where there were like spots in the? I mean, it was just because
the sparklies. You mean, Steve? Should we talk for half an hour about the sparklies?
Not if you want me to stay.
The sparklies. No. Can you not see the sparklies? Is it on the? Is it on your copy? Is it on your disc, or is it on?
Okay. I think we get the sarcasm, Kaz.
Oh yeah.
Right. Great. Okay. Tom, you got anything to add here?
No, for sure. Pitch Black. It looks gorgeous with the different filters for the different suns. It's amazing. It really, it's in your face.
Pops.
I love it.
I think pops the technical.
People keep saying pops. It doesn't pop. That's not my TV pops.
It's supernovas.
It blares.
Do you get good insight?
Oh no! Stop it.
Do I get what?
This is for Phil. Everybody on Earth has a trigger word. Mine is the use of tot to describe small children in tabloid newspapers. Phil has a passionate loathing of the word insight
because it's used by a certain publication and they don't know what they're talking about.
So that's the.
Oh, I hate when people always refer to the Cupertino based.
Tom loves woke.
I actually do. Well, I don't know what we're talking about though. I'm completely lost.
Trigger words.
We are now talking about the best TV shows of the month. So let's move it on quickly, because we are fast running out of time here. So, but I want to give movies the same amount of time as hardware. So we're going to do that. Yeah. TV shows of the month. Like I said earlier on, I've been catching up with some documentaries and stuff that's on there on Sky. The Forest and Fire Against the Judges. My God, that is just first-class television. Absolute first-class television. You can cancel everything else that's on. Just have them versus the judges. It's absolutely brilliant. There, I've said my piece. Tom's fainted.
Yeah, Tom.
You pick the same thing every week.
Yeah, Forged in Fire.
Can you watch anything
That's
else?
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Just cancel everything
Some
else.
of the
live it- we
best
li-
television ever is currently on.
Yeah.
We live in a
Forged in
the game.
Fire.
The game has changed.
Yeah,
To be
yeah,
fair, so you know.
No, I do jest. It is good though, if you like trashy TV. I have been watching Gulpin Auto Services, or GAS as it's called. It's on a Monday night. It's replaced Fast and Loud on Discovery. It is the basically they find old classic cars and stuff that has disappeared from history. So like the original development car for the Dodge Viper, and they did last week, they did a resto mod of a Mark 1 from 1973. So it's right up my street. It's well made, it's well produced, and we've got the new Wheeler dealer starting on Monday as well. So in terms of car TV, I'm really happy. In terms of other things, I have still to catch up on lots of stuff. So that's it from me. If you like cars, there's loads of good car stuff on at the minute.
I've got a picture. of
Or
TV
Forged in
show for you,
Fire.
Phil.
Remember, Forged in Fire.
How about a TV show where blacksmiths make cars?
I'm in for that.
Oh, in for that.
And then crash them from planes.
Oh,
And
no,
then
no, no.
get
Then they
investigated.
take them to the Netflix hyperdrive arena for
This
testing.
is $1 million idea.
It
Oh,
is.
oh yeah, we should be having a new series of air crash investigation. coming
Copyright.
soon.
Exactly. A documentary about investigating crashes of cars from planes by ironmongers.
Yeah.
Well,
The problem at the minute is I've got so much on at the minute. Actually, devoting any time to any series, I'm finding difficult. So the stuff that I am dipping into is stuff that's easy. It's either like one episode or whatever. Because the other thing I've been watching is the secrets of the old architecture. You can dip in for an episode, watch it. You don't have to watch the whole series. Right. So let's go to somebody that watches actual TV programs that are good. I was going to go to you, Ed.
well, no. Can I just do? I watched something last night, actually.
Forged in Fire.
No, I watched something last night, way off the radar list of where we normally find good television. But last night, Gold, they of showing endless Only Fools and Horses episodes, reconvened the cast or surviving cast of the Fast Show to have a chat about it 25 years after it first aired. And I had no expectations. And it was absolutely brilliant. And it'll be on Now TV, I'm hoping, as a catch-up, because I believe there's a second part this evening, Sunday night. And just listening to them talk about how certain things came into being, and they're all lovely people. And it was absolutely fantastic. It was 2 hours, including advert breaks. And I can't remember the last time I watched something where I learnt so much. And there's just a sequence, because obviously Pauline Ahern was involved in it, and she's now sadly Carolyn Ahern, sorry, sadly no longer with us. And they do a little nod to her, and if you don't have the slightest twinge of emotion as to how they do it, you've got no soul. So I just there's all sorts of as the television people are pointing out legitimately, there is some great television on the go at the moment, but that came out of nowhere to be something that was genuinely wonderful to watch. And I think it should hopefully be available to catch up and enjoy, because if you did enjoy the Far Show, and I did, I mean, it still has some sketches which
Bob Fleming here.
well, so the thing is, it's there are a tiny number of comedy shows where they're so out there that they don't date in the conventional sense of the word, and some sketches of the Far Show have, obviously that's the nature of anything, but so many of them still work beautifully because they're so gloriously surreal. And
The Fast Show was they were experts in the comedy of repetition as well.
Yes, but still subverting the form whilst they did it, because it wasn't always it was the thing that you were so sure you were going to get the same thing, and then you didn't.
I loved it, but he was very drunk.
Yes, but again, do you remember the time when he did the serious one?
Well, when he stopped, the story becomes about woman he loved, and he lost her because
and
of
it's just
alcoholism.
like being,
and it becomes incredibly
stabbed
moving.
in the side. It was unbelievable, and so that's the whole thing. And if you did enjoy the Fast Show, and I did, I still think it holds up to this day. Well worth a watch. Well worth a watch. And if, as Phil points out, we're busy people under a lot, and we have many constraints to our time. It's a one-off. There's 2 programs, so yeah, well worth a look.
That sounds great. I'm going to search that out. That sounds right up my street.
You're very welcome.
Don't forget Forged in Fire, Tom.
Oh, it's on record. It's like I've series record.
Right. So what have you been watching, Tom?
Lovecraft Country. That's got to be the best thing that's been on TV in flipping ages. It's review coming up for it tomorrow. Because I wanted to see how it panned out. The first
episode is absolutely stellar. The second one can't quite live up to the first one because the first one's so good.
Do you know what? I don't know. Like it went full pelt into its like genre roots, and there are
went full pelt in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah,
it didn't muck about.
So many like nods to little, like pulp horror and pulp sci-fi and low budget horror movies, and it just crams so much in that if you have any interest in like science fiction from the 1800s onwards or horror from 1900 onwards, then
you want a history lesson on how crap it was to be black in America in the 50s, because some of the stuff in it's terrifying and it's real. It's
scary stuff, like not the like horror tropey stuff, but the experience of being black in America is what's terrifying.
I mean, I'd never heard of sundown towns. They were real, or sundown counties as well. If you were black and you were caught outside in a sundown town, they lynched you.
Yeah,
it's just absolutely appalling. I'm not talking about deep south here. I'm talking about Maine and in the northeast. Northeast. So I don't know what HBO they've got that, because obviously this and Watchmen were created at least 2 years ago. But they've hit it just the right time in terms of tapping into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, the resonance of them right now is enormous.
Well, maybe they're the antagonists in Tenet. I don't know. They've obviously got time machinery of their own. So
it is awesome if you haven't.
Yeah,
seen it,
it's absolutely great. And I was leaving off reviewing it for a few episodes just because after watching the first episode, I was like, is this a story that's going to play out over the season? And it's not. It's a self-contained story. It has payoff in episode 2. How often does that happen with an ongoing?
Well, that sounds rewarding.
And I was so impressed that they just closed it was like the end of a chapter, the end of the second episode, and it was so satisfying and so just pleasing to see a TV show that has got an idea of how to structure a story rather than just keep playing it out for as long as we can keep an audience. And we'll see how episode 3 turns out tonight. So really looking forward
is it you're watching? It's tonight. I thought it was tomorrow. Or was it like in the middle of the night?
Yeah, at midnight.
Tom doesn't sleep.
Just Kaz, what have you been watching?
Well, I would have said that hands down, Umbrella should have been the best of the month, but I just
watched season 1 and 2 and really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it, but I have to say, I think I preferred. You might have got a better experience than me, Steve. I think I preferred season 1. I found season 2 was basically.
Oh, I love season 2 because I'm a Kennedy assassination buff, and I've been to Dealey Plaza, so for me it was an absolute
perfect
treat
for that. but actually, Stargirl was the one that surprised me. I'd heard vaguely good things about it when it aired in the US, but I still didn't believe it, partly because of her costume and partly because it's called Stargirl. But it's really good.
It's not Starfish Girl, so
they do very good world building. Justice Society of America and the villains are actually quite menacing. I found it strong work from DC, and another good DC entry. They appear to be nailing their TV shows in a way they perhaps don't get right in movies.
Disappointed that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't getting getting picked up with the UK.
Yeah,
So
that's-
hopefully it'll turn up on Disney Plus.
It is. It's on its way. Like season 6 is already on its way to.
Yeah, they
Disney
just
Plus,
added
so-
that. So
So like we're assuming that it'll be a
better
long.
turn around soon though. But yeah, it's only a 12-parter, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Okay. I think Steve's the only person that hasn't said anything yet.
Well, apart from the things that have already been mentioned, I was delighted. I haven't watched it yet, but I was delighted to see Cobra Kai turn up on Netflix, which surprised me because I thought it was a YouTube production, original production. But anyway, season 1 and 2 are on Netflix. I'm definitely going to watch that because I love the Karate Kid. But the show that I've been enjoying, partly because I love a largely one and done police procedural episode series. Partly because I can't believe no one's ever done it before. I mean, you'd think this would have been pitched in 1990. Hannibal Lecter has a kid works for the FBI and profiles serial killers. It seems like the obvious thing to do, and call it Prodigal Son. And also, I'd watch Michael Sheen read the phone book. And also the guy playing the son, Tom Payne, he went to my school. So
He's
for that
pretty
reason,
good in it.
he's excellent. No, he's great. It's an absolutely cracking show. Really enjoying it. It's cobblers, but it's fun, and I'm really enjoying myself watching it. And like I say, Michael Sheen raises anything he's in to another level.
He chews just the right amount of scenery.
Yeah. But I think it's the lead who actually steals the show for me.
He's got to do all the work.
He does have to do all the work, and I actually find his eccentricities quite good.
Yeah, no, he's
it's very much like Sherlock and all the
other.
Oh yeah,
no, it's absolutely elementary, but it's like I said, I can't believe someone hadn't thought of this 30 years ago and called Prodigal Son. Then it just writes itself, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, it does.
It's really obvious. It's like, what if Hannibal Lecter had a kid and that kid was in the police force?
Yeah,
it's taken 30 years or someone to come up with this.
Again, I'm pretty sure me and you, Steve, are the only two people who liked it, judging by the comments
I haven't
on my review thread.
Look, can we be clear
like
on
you said
this?
before, we haven't had time.
As I said earlier on, it's been an unbelievable month for music releases. My television gets turned on periodically when I eat because operating a record player whilst you eat is difficult. Otherwise, it's just an enormous rectangle that is mounted to my wall and does absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And that's an occupational hazard. Music has held up beautifully over lockdown. I'm delighted for that, and I've had a great time. I'm not in any way knocking it, and I know there's great television out there, but I'm always going to come down on the Sonic side.
I know it's starting to get cold and wet now. The more it gets cold and wet and dark, and I don't want to take the car out, that's when I'll spend more time indoors, and I'll devote it to catching up on TV that I've missed. Because a lot of the stuff that you've been discussing at the end of the month, a lot of the series, I really want to see them. It's just I don't have the time to spare, and I've just started Star Wars Rebels. So
well, obviously we've all got our, and you've not done Game of Thrones yet, have you?
Oh no, I've still got the disc sitting there. I've still to start season 1 now. So
I wouldn't bother if I was you.
You're
only going to get disappointed at the end.
4, and then stop, and then read the books.
Yeah.
Right.
Obviously, I think I speak for Tom and Kaz when I say we're all looking forward to The Boys season 2 this weekend coming
very soon. Very exciting.
Friday, isn't it? Friday? Yeah. Is it Friday? Yeah.
Yeah, but they're only releasing it one a week.
Are they?
Oh,
what you mean?
Bollocks up my plans for the weekend then.
Old television.
Sneaky, huh? Yeah.
Well, I was
Right.
going to rewatch season 1 anyway,
there.
so I'll do that first.
Yeah, they're originals in like bits and pieces.
Okay,
like
we
Taylor
are
Breadcrumbs.
getting close to the 2-hour mark. So
Yeah.
we really need to.
We did start late.
We have devoted a lot of time to all the
We
subjects
started
this
4
week, so-
minutes late. Let's be clear about it.
One thing I do want to apologise for is those god awful photos at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, I'll send
The
it
one where
up.
Kaz looks like a serial killer.
Yeah, I think we need to
Quite
update our
handsome.
photos.
I like that.
Steve,
Yeah, I will
Steve,
say.
you look like a furniture salesman. It's fantastic.
I look very smug in that picture for some reason.
Would you like to sell me a used car?
Sell you a used Blu-ray player.
Can you tell that we both took those photos at the same? I think it was a Panasonic event, wasn't it? We found this really
it was.
nice.
Yeah, it was Panasonic European Convention.
At Connor, we needed to have head and shoulders shots. So I use that head and shoulder shot for everything. It's on my passport. It's on my the Limitless card. It's all
When
over
you
the
put the
place.
Head and Shoulders.
Yeah. Right. Podcast competition.
yes. So you can win a limited edition Blu-ray box set of Walkabout by using the following question to select the correct answer on the competition. Which of the following movies did Nicholas Roeg do uncredited work on? Our Blu-ray review will help if you need it.
Put some energy into it, Kaz. I know it's been a long podcast.
No, he's being.
I know the
Captain
answer to
Crypto.
that, I think.
Okay, well
Tom
done.
looks like he's on a register.
What? What?
Just a comment.
That's
outrageous.
that's unfair, Graham. That really is.
I'm gorgeous in that photo.
Considering that's a bit harsh, considering you got next to him, you got Kaz. Looks like he's about to cut your throat at any second.
Get bent. I look awful.
Sweeney
there.
Todd looming out of the darkness.
I'll tell you what he does look like. You look like one of these tech journalists that would work for an American publication like The Verve or
Yeah.
something like that.
He wishes.
Message to the Verve. If you're willing to pay me a little bit more,
Right, but tell them what we pay you £2.50 a week for, Tom. You've got your videos, so
my
give us
thumbs.
right. So what is it all about? What's your videos about?
Every month I'm releasing 2 videos where I'm looking at the forthcoming programs for each of the main streaming services. We're starting off looking at Netflix. That video is out now, and one for Amazon will be out very shortly. And I just go through what's coming up on Netflix and Amazon, and I choose a few things that I think are going to be interesting, choose a few things that I think you might want to avoid, and just generally ramble on a bit. It's just bit of a fun time with me.
Super happy fun time.
Yeah, and I'm a nice presence. I'm a nice personality to
A
have.
benign presence.
Yeah,
Is what you're
if you're
looking for.
gonna have like a parasocial experience with someone, then it may as well be me, because
This is why I don't do these videos, because fundamentally I'm sort of the equivalent of sandpaper. But by the by.
so what's
yes.
those? They're great.
Yeah. Okay. And what do the thumbs mean?
What do the thumbs mean? They mean if it's good or bad, like if it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But I do sometimes forget to do the thumbs up or the thumbs down.
You had one job.
I do notice it's hit or miss whether or not you actually get any thumbs on.
But it's just the AV Forums way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just
Ambitious.
I only-
but rubbish.
ambitious
You know what?
but crap.
I chose the name before I knew what it would entail. No, not before I knew. No,
Yeah, you clearly had the name and then came up with a show to go with the name.
I chose the
didn't you?
name on the fly, and I stuck with it because I thought it sounded awful.
What else was Tom's Thumbs going to be about?
This is the internet. This is the internet we're talking about. So let's on that bombshell.
Well, actually, licensed taximan says Tom is a tech writer for Costco.
This is slander. I'm
Yeah.
not coming back.
Yeah, that it is. Yeah. Okay. Well, that is it for the podcast this week.
You'll be glad to know.
Yeah. We're back again next week, unfortunately. But Steve Withers, thank you very much.
Don't fear the Reaper.
Ed Selley,
You have sunk my battleship.
Tom Davies,
This has been non heinous.
and Kaz Harlow.
Sorry, Death, you lose.
If you've enjoyed the podcast, like I say, please think about donating. You can do that 2 ways. Patreon.com/AV Forums, £3 a month. It's good value. Or you can do it through streamlabs.com/AV Forums, one-off. Or if you have a question for next week, you can do it that way, and we'll get round to answering those. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. You can bookmark AV Forums for reviews, news, and videos like Tom's Thumbs. And why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you again next week.